Hello, welcome to our Critical Lens series. This video is hosted by Emma and Adelina. Today we'll be discussing The Awakening by Kate Chopin and specifically analyzing it using the psychoanalytical lens. The psychoanalytical lens or psychoanalytical perspective is when we reference how literary text reveals the author's subconscious desires. The psychoanalytical lens is often separated by three categories: ID, superego, and ego. ID references your more primal desires like food, aggression, sex. People who are motivated more by ID are typically looked down upon for their basic and more undeveloped motivations. Superego is another extreme that references someone's morality. It's developed by your own circumstances and your social circle. People driven primarily by superego can often fail to experience life in pleasure. And then in the middle of these two extremes, ID and superego, is ego. Someone motivated by ego will feel more fulfilled and still fit into their social circle because they have a nice balance of their primal desires and their other desires. At the beginning of the novel, in The Awakening, Edna was driven by her superego because she was doing her duty and operating based on her moral compass. By the end of the book, she's driven by her ID because she gives in to her inner desires. She acts selfishly and does things for her own benefit instead of trying to adhere to the social norms.
Robert is very much driven by his ego because he has desires that he succumbs to at times, but overall, he tends to stick with what his morals tell him to do. He wants to be with Edna, but the only way that he is willing to do it is if she and Leon separate, because he refuses to commit adultery and help Edna cheat. The difference is one of the primary conflicts between Robert and Edna. While Edna is driven by her id and wants to only pursue her own happiness, as is seen through her rebelling against Leon's and fighting against societal norms to the detriment of her family. However, Robert wants to be with Edna in a morally and societally acceptable way because he was driven by his ego and wouldn't completely submit to his desires. The psychoanalytical lens is important because it tells us everything that people don't like to say out loud, like their inner desires. It gives us a closer look as to who they are as a person and why they do what they do. There are so many things that happen in this novel because of one's inner thoughts and desires, and by having this lens, we are able to analyze them more closely. Through this, we are able to follow a character's development, especially Edna's, throughout a story like The Awakening. Thank you.